she said that she always learned how much there is to learn, how much more there is to learn, even being an educator herself. And I don't know about you, Brett, but I've always credited myself as being someone who loves to learn. I'm an
Mhm.
academician at heart, love to read. I just love knowledge. I love to learn. So, and I'm interested and I'm curious about so much. And I think that makes me a great physician, but also someone who can be a great investor and even a better investor, being curious about new things and learning about new things and new topics, and even the diversification of one's portfolio.
Mhm.
Um, Curiosity is so important.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable, real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Today's guest is coming to us from the beautiful state of Georgia. He is an internal medicine physician, and we are locking in on a conversation about where to start, how to start. What are some questions about the single family world? Is that a good place to start my real estate investing? We know that we have to diversify our income and diversify our passive streams of income. So this is a great place to start. Everybody, please welcome Dr. Earl Stewart to the show. Hey, Earl, welcome to the show. How does it feel to be Dr. Earl today?
It feels good, Brett. I am at really what I feel the pinnacle of my career. I'm doing what I want to do, doing what I need to do, and I know exactly what I need to do every day to take care of my patients and to further myself professionally. So it's a very good feeling.
Nice, nice. And as you're talking, the sunshine just came there in a big old burst. You're coming
Right.
to us from Georgia today, and I'm here in the Carolinas, so we're pretty close. And if complaining had any value, we'd all be doing it all the time. But if I were to say anything, I could just be warmed up just a little bit here in the Carolinas when we're recording this in the beginning of the year. So,
Right.
but beautiful sunshine, beautiful. Just grateful for the weather we do have. Grateful for your time today.
Thank
And
you.
what I would like the listeners to know is a little more about your medical journey and where'd you start and where you end up and what are you doing now?
Yeah, so I am a son of Augusta, Georgia, born and raised. Many know Augusta by the affiliation with James Brown, the godfather of soul. Many know Augusta by the Masters Golf Tournament. And I started there. I started there being raised in the public school system, had some wonderful teachers and educators, left there and went to Mercer University, where I completed undergraduate training. I got a bachelor of science degree there, minored in chemistry and Latin, and studied with a pre-medical focus, went to Meharry Medical College after that, starting in 2009, finished in 2013, and did my residency at Brown. And then after I finished my residency, I've been back home in the state of Georgia practicing medicine. And I am a practicing internal medicine specialist, internal medicine physician in Atlanta. And practicing medicine every day is my salve. I enjoy. I don't really see myself doing anything else besides teaching, but I enjoy teaching medical students and residents and other physicians as well.
That's amazing. And now you say you're comfortable with where you're at and the idea of knowing what you need to do to continue to improve yourself from where you're at. What are some of those things that kind of stand out to you right now that allow you to be comfortable with where you're at?
Well, I think in whatever any sector anyone works in, um, I think everyone would pretty much agree it's almost paramount nowadays to have a good work-life balance. You don't want to work yourself into an early grave. You want to take time to smell the roses. My wife and I purposefully keep fresh flowers in the house. My preference is yellow roses. I love white roses too. And I keep them here because every morning I wake up, I go downstairs and I smell them before I
It's a
walk out.
great reminder.
And I enjoy life. I enjoy my work, but I understand that there has to be steadfast boundaries in making sure that you protect both. And that really is the quagmire that a lot of people experience and face every day. Knowing how to effectively maneuver that is not always an easy task, but when I say that, I feel like I'm in a good place now. I feel like I have achieved a really good work-life balance that affords me time to professionally develop my acumen, but also personally to be able to enjoy my family and do some of the things that I like to do outside of clinical practice every day.
Perfect. And that comfort we've talked about a lot on this show, Real Estate Mogul MD, is
Mhm.
sometimes provided by um, external income sources,
Yeah.
specifically real estate. Tell us a little bit about your journey in investing versus, just relying on your income as a physician.
I have always been entrepreneurial since the very beginning. I mean, I started learning about investments when I was in college. That's where I opened my first Charles Schwab account. And I
Mhm.
still have that account today and I still utilize it. And it's a great source. I'm not really, peddling Charles Schwab here, but I'm just saying for at the time when I was learning about investing and growing money, that was a great resource for me. I remember also when I was in high school, there were programs that were available to teach high school students how to invest. I think it used to be called Share Builder. It was a game. It was an assignment that we would take advantage of during business classes, and it was very, very helpful. I didn't learn a whole lot from it, much to the chagrin of probably my high school teachers
Mhm.
teaching it at the time. But it was a great introduction. But I really learned more about taking initiative myself and reading and understanding what the difference is between a stock and a mutual fund. I've always believed. I actually just finished a meeting earlier with an investment group, just learning more about annuities. I am always trying to find the best way to grow my money and to let my money work for me. And I consider myself a pretty knowledgeable investor, but I'm always looking to learn from experts more and more every chance I get.
Mhm. Yeah, never stop learning.
All right.
Always have the best questions. Never be the smartest one at the table, right, Earl?
Absolutely. That's always, listen, there's always somebody smarter than you.
Yeah.
There's always somebody who can teach you something. And keeping that in mind, I think helps us embrace humility.
Hmm.
We can learn from anyone. And really my journey in the profession of medicine sort of started that way, where my professors and my early mentors pretty much said, you may not be the person who's the smartest person in the hospital. The first thing you do is when you start rounding on the wards and you're a new doctor on that unit, you go and introduce yourself to the nurses, to the custodians, to the laboratory staff, to the medicals, to everybody, to the techs, to the people who draw blood, because it teaches you empathy and it teaches you that you need to be humble, even though you're the leader of a healthcare team. And so I think that carries over into my personal life and my investment journey.
Yeah, I have a 10-year-old son, and it fascinates me so often. I'm telling him that he can't learn anything if he already knows everything.
Right.
And it's that instant rebound. How much do you have kids, Earl?
No, my wife and I are dinks, double income, no kids right now, but we are looking
Right.
forward to having children
This is
in the near future.
it's one of the blessings of it. And
Yeah,
sometimes blessings feel like challenges in the moment, right? But being able to look back and in those instances and say, man, it's just there's so much for you to learn, but if you're not willing to learn or understand that there's room for learning, then
right.
you're missing out on so much, so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Y-
One of my favorite pieces of poetry. I recently gave a keynote speech at my alma mater, a minority success conference. I was trying to find that piece in a book, and I just couldn't find it. But I remember it was by an educator, and one of the statements that stayed with me was that she said that she always learned how much there is to learn, how much more there is to learn, even being an educator herself. And I don't know about you, Brett, but I've always credited myself as being someone who loves to learn. I'm an
Mhm.
academician at heart, love to read. I just love knowledge. I love to learn. So, and I'm interested and I'm curious about so much. And I think that makes me a great physician, but also someone who can be a great investor and even a better investor, being curious about new things and learning about new things and new topics, and even the diversification of one's portfolio.
Mhm.
Um, Curiosity is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. The more that I learn, the more I learn that I don't know.
Yeah.
That's that constant thing. It's just a wonderful piece. And that childlike curiosity is really important too. And a gentleman named Jim Rohn always talks about it.
Mm,
Maintaining that childlike curiosity when you are learning, and
mm,
then speaking with physicians, being able to pick that up, just like you said, Earl, pick that up, and don't let that set only in medicine. You can pick
mm,
up that childlike curiosity and implement it in different avenues of investing too.
yeah.
These avenues of investing that you've partaken in so far, we talked, I hear you talk a little bit about Charles Schwab, and that's kind of like stock market stuff. Are there any other venues that you've reached into?
Yeah. I have my wife and I are very interested in real estate. And
Hmm.
I guess that's where, our conversation originally got started. We have made contacts with various people who are investors. We've been learning from people who do this every day. We believe and really in my entire family, we have a focus on building generational wealth and being financially independent and hopefully one day be able to retire early. That's something we're very intentional about. And so I guess, really apropos to our discussion today, our desire to break into real estate, we haven't yet, but we've established the LLC. We have an EIN. We are building our network of partners in our state and in others who could potentially be great resources when it comes to getting a second mortgage on a rental property and learning more about 1031 exchanges and things of that sort when it's time. But we're very much a, people devoted to being owners
Hmm.
and to building our wealth. Outside of that, we keep all of our buckets full, and we're very intentional about that, putting it on autopilot, making sure that we contribute to our retirement accounts and that we're good stewards of, taking advantage of tax incentives and limiting our tax burden. So these are things that, um, in conjunction with having a good accountant, in conjunction with having a good financial advising team, we're also individually invested in that. So it's not good enough, I think. And I tell a lot of physician colleagues this because many of us love the white coat investor. I am a student of Dr. Dolly. I've been following his podcast and his work for quite some time, as many of us have. And but it also takes, and if anything, I think he really has taught us. You have to know how your money is moving. You have to know um, the details. And we're really good at that when it comes to, studying diseases and disease manifestations and pathophysiology of diseases and treating patients and medications and pharmacology. But physicians have notoriously not been really good with being good stewards of their money, just because not really by any fault of our own. Sometimes we just do not have the education. I personally don't come from a family that's remarkably wealthy. I came from blue collar working class people. who worked hard, paid the bills, made sure you had food on the table, you had clothes on your back, and made sure you had the necessities and even some of the things that you wanted. But we weren't wealthy, and so a lot of times, many of us as African American physicians come from that background. People who come, even those who are not African American, from rural backgrounds where they're not, you know, accustomed to affluence and opulence. We don't know what to do when we get the big doctor check, and so a lot of times we spend foolishly. We buy the big doctor house, we buy too many cars, we don't invest, we don't save. And so there's a movement now in the profession of medicine that teaches us, I think, that, hey, you got to be smart with your money. You got to do the right thing. You have to save. You have to live like a resident, Jim Dolly often says, and, not make foolish decisions when it comes to protecting your future financially, really.
Yeah. So much there to unpack.
Yeah.
White Coat Investor, great resource. And that's just, it makes me think it's not because a lack of knowledge, I don't think. I think it's because a lack of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a physician, you have the capacity and ability to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You've done very well, but you focus your attention on niche stuff. You've focused it down one lane. The problem is the time limitations that
Mm-hmm.
restrict your attention. Your
Mm-hmm.
attention is placed specifically on studying residency, all of those things that align you in that specific goal and absorbs all of your attention, all of your time.
Mm-hmm.
But once you can pick that up and pivot, like we said, that childlike curiosity, when you can put it in places like White Coat Investor,
Mm-hmm.
or here's a good plug, the Real Estate Mogul MD
That's
podcast.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just great because then you're sharing, because if you think about it, the idea that everybody has the same amount of time, you and I have the same amount of time. It's just where we put our attention in those pieces and how we can take, even take quantum leaps in our progress on certain things based on where our attention goes.
Mm-hmm.
So focusing it in the right area. But first, it all starts with mindset, Earl. And I think that you're there. That seed is planted.
Mm-hmm.
And, that direction of, okay, we've thought about real estate a little bit. We're starting to take action, which is really good, because you can study all your life, and if you don't implement anything, then you're never going to make any change. You don't take that knowledge and turn it into wisdom until you step out there and take a swing, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the real estate piece, what I love learning about the beginning piece.
Mm.
So the seed is planted. Where does that go for you? Like, what asset classes, or where do you go? What are your resources? Tell me a little bit about your journey learning about real estate.
Yeah, Brett, I don't really know where it began, but I think, I think it may have really begun listening to podcasts
Mm-hmm.
and having a discussion with myself even before I was married that this was something I eventually wanted to do. But I think it really started there. I think it really started listening to podcasts and having an interest in building generational wealth. And then I learned about the steps. Like, what steps do I need to take to move forward with this? And again, that childlike curiosity crept in, and I read, I found out the steps I needed to take. I learned about things like doing 10 31 exchanges recently, things like that. So I'm always learning about ways to um further diversify my portfolio, and I've always learned that one of the best ways to do that is to own real estate.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's where it really got started, just an interest in it. Yeah.
In your research path, what asset class do you feel are you leaning towards a specific asset class in real estate? Is it single family, multifamily, storage, mobile home park? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we're thinking more so when we get started, um, just buying our first rental property will be like a single family home, like a long-term rental.
Mhm.
We thought about things like short-term rentals, like Airbnbs and things like that. But um, but but I think for us as people initially getting started in this process or in this venture, it's going to be best for us to start with one, see how it goes, and then grow. I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, I think single family is a great, I tell everybody, a stepping stone. There are few people who will actually scale single families, but it is a great stepping stone to build into other classes. And it's super easy to get into, it's super easy to get out. There's more opportunity, there's more resources, mistakes are smaller. So there's the barrier of entry is a lot easier to get through. So if I'm sitting here in front of you, Earl, and single family is my niche, I've
Yeah,
been doing this for a really long time. What questions do you have? Do you have anything like what have you struggled kind of like connecting the dots on or not finding information on?
right. I guess the best thing that I think will help me at this juncture is like how does the market influence like home value,
Mhm.
specifically as it pertains to having rental properties. um, I kind of know about how it impacts like one's primary residence,
Mhm.
but just learning about ways to um, you know leverage whatever growth you get from the market, or what happens when the market um, fails or doesn't do as well.
Yeah.
How does that impact your ability to even tap into the equity in a rental property?
Yeah.
Those are things that I'm currently trying to learn more about. And then, um, you know, what are some of the what are really some of the lessons you've learned that you wish that you had known earlier?
Great, great stuff, man. Well, first of all, on the market piece, when you decide or when you're looking for the market, you never want to find the house and then work your way out. Hey, is this in a good market? You want to start from the outside and go in. You want to see, find these areas that are landlord friendly versus tenant friendly. And a lot of times that can be on the state level.
Right.
But that's going to get you in these markets. But once you're down in these markets, one of the things that we look at is I want consistent and steady growth. I don't want volatile markets. We're talking about market relevance to single families in a long term, say, I'll keep it simple, in a long term scenario. One of the approaches that we take is called the outside in approach. I want to make sure that I find the market and then the house, not the house, then the market. I want to find areas that are landlord friendly, not necessarily tenant friendly. And then once I have, I mean, that can be on a state level. Once I have that and I'm looking down into the market, I want them to be affordable homes. I want rents to be affordable, and I want income to be relevant to the rent too.
Mm.
So I'm thinking of all these things, and then I'm getting down inside of the market. And these markets, I want steady and consistent growth. I'm talking like 1 to 3% steady. If you look at the Charlotte, North Carolina, that was, I believe, the 15th largest city in the United States and the fifth fastest growing. That was
Mm.
great for what I call kill and eat style investing. So it was
Mm.
short term, it was quick, it was equity capture, turn and go. But once that market swings, then that style of investing is more risky
Mm.
because it's you can't predict it as much.
Mhm.
So the more growth, the less predictable something is going to be. So we're looking for
Mm.
that steady growth and consistent, something that's just hanging right there. Because when we buy for long term, we're buying for cash flow. And
Mm.
once we have that predictability, then that market value doesn't matter. We get our loan, then the market value doesn't matter anymore. Once that
Mhm.
loan is in place, that market can go up and down, even when we're in markets where that market won't go up and down, really. It'll stay pretty persistent.
Mm-hmm.
Then it doesn't matter to what our cash flow is because we have 30-year fixed loans in place. We leverage capital in those regards,
Mm-hmm.
and it's based off the market appraised value. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the only time that we really look at it. We look at if worst case scenario, if we had to liquidate a property, that's when I'm looking at the market value then. But overall, we buy for cash flow, and the
Mm-hmm.
equity is the bonus
Mm-hmm.
increase, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Other scenarios where if you're holding these for longer terms and you have an increase in market value, you can actually, take out another line of credit or refinance and capture that equity back in there. Or hey,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's a good time, Earl, to exercise that 1031 exchange to capture the equity and put it in two or three more different properties at the same
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, the market itself, up and down, isn't going to drive a lot. Once we have the right area, the market value is really not going to drive us a lot in these long-term approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's good to
so
know.
yeah, it's that's a great question, and just really finding the area is the important piece. Knowing your acquisition equation is really important. How do I get down and figure my investment objectives are being met? First
Mm-hmm.
of all, you got to know what your investment objectives are. How much?
Exactly.
What's a normal net adjust? I call it net adjusted cash flow. I'm taking out my reserves, taking out all my expenses. What am I looking for per door per month? And that's going to lead me all the way back to what can I pay for this property because I know I got to make X, Y, and Z repairs,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Lessons. Wow, that is a great question. I could talk for days on this.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. I bet.
Um, my wife and I we started by doing fix and flips,
Mm-hmm.
and that gave us those bubbles of capital that then allowed us to start buying and holding. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a great scenario doing that. We learned so much in the beginning, uh, just by trial. So trial by error, trial by fire, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest lessons is just taking action, getting
Mm-hmm.
out there and getting. Don't have these limited beliefs that you can't do it because you don't have 20% or whatever number you've made up in your mind that you
Mm-hmm.
think you need. You don't have the time. You don't have the resources. There's a lot of these limiting beliefs that you have. They're only there because you put them there. If you
Yeah.
were to put it the other way, hey, what would this look like if I did have a rental property and then worked your way back from there, you'll find the
Yeah.
solutions and not the problems.
So I hear a lot of what you're saying is it's psychological. It's mind over matter.
100%.
And then I also hear from you, don't make excuses that, other people, um, don't pretty much put upon you. Don't really make any excuses that you put upon yourself. No excuses really in general.
Yeah.
So that's really good because I've learned the more I've invested that there's a lot of psychology that goes into it.
Hmm.
There's a lot of understanding how the ebbs and flows of the market. But it's good to know that there's a similar type of psychology that goes into investing in real estate.
Yeah.
So that'll be great for us to leverage, when things are not always as we want them to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's great.
A great place to start too, lesson wise, is in your backyard. Wherever you're close to, it's going to be easier for you to focus your attention.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about scaling a hedge fund or anything like that. So one, two, three, four properties are really not going to be driven by market swings, market changes, legalities, all of these things. So it's a great place to start,
Mm-hmm.
and is there. And you make these relationships is the biggest thing. The
Mm-hmm.
first relationships I would start making are with property managers.
Mm-hmm.
Creating a questionnaire sheet so you can ask the good questions. If you don't know the questions, then you literally Google it. Or you know what? I've written a book, Earl, and
Mm-hmm.
in that book, I have a resource where you can get even like questionnaires for property
Mm-hmm.
managers.
Mm-hmm. I was going to
So
ask you what are some good resources that you would recommend for those getting started in real estate investing. So
yeah.
I would love to purchase and read that book.
Yeah, this book is called How to Get Rich as a Doctor. And
Uh-huh.
just like what you were saying, there's mindset
Yeah.
is the first piece. And a lot of that stuff comes from how we're conditioned to feel about money,
Mm,
how we're conditioned to behave when we have money, how we're conditioned to behave around others who have money. All of these things,
mhm,
it's starting there. And then
mhm,
from there, it's basically real estate. And
mhm,
it's the single family in that book. We did a look at buying 12 properties and
mhm,
how that cash flow works, how we find them, what the team looks like.
mm,
Um, how do I figure out how much I can pay for them? How do I even know what rent I should be getting? All of this stuff is in that book. So it's a great spot to really figure out, because just like what we said before, Earl, I don't want to be the smartest person at the table. I want to be the one with the best questions. And
mm,
this kind of research is what allows you to ask those questions, either property managers, real estate agents,
mhm,
wholesalers, which is a great word as well,
mhm, mhm,
and then figure out, hey, I've got opportunities all around me. They're
mhm,
in my backyard. They're there. I've got what it takes to attack, address, and to take advantage of them.
mhm,
So what does that look like? How do I get there? So those are the
mhm.
questions. It's all going to start with questions.
Awesome. I
Good
think
stuff.
you've given me some wonderful ideas about ways to approach moving forward once we certainly, even before we, once we identify what rental property we want to purchase, and then the steps that are going to be useful to take to ensure our success.
Yeah.
And so I'm very appreciative of that. But I will purchase your book and I will read it. And thank you for letting me know about it. My other question is, how did you get involved in tailoring real estate investment interest and knowledge and attention, if you will, to doctors?
Yeah. Great question.
Yeah.
Well, exactly what we're talking about here. I started doing this and I didn't have any money,
Mm,
right? I didn't have any ability to I mean, you just think about it. It's again, this thought, this condition that we have of how am I going to pay $100,000 for my house? And some of the listeners, depending on where you're at in the United States, you'd be like, where are you buying a house for 100,000?
mm, I
But it
know
all
that's right.
starts with asking the right questions and removing the mental blocks that we give ourselves.
Mm,
Anyway, Earl, in this journey, when we started flipping houses, I didn't have the money, so we actually worked with other people
mm,
to provide the financing for
mm,
the deals that we were doing, and we
mm,
call that private money, and I call it flipping the script.
mm,
We were able to execute a mortgage, which gave the lender a lien position on the property. And we were execute a promissory note says, hey, I'm going to promise you to pay you back so and so at these terms. And then we gave the lender additional payee on the insurance when we close on the property too. So it mitigate as much risk as possible for any person. Anybody can be a lender. And we use the same process that the bank does, but we just gave that process to the lenders. Well, think of it, Earl, um, who's got maybe is an attending role, or some a nice job at the hospital, has got some cash but doesn't have the time,
mm,
or the ability to put the attention in, but they want to get into real estate. We started
mm,
working with physicians because
mm,
they had a great opportunity to make double digit returns secured by local real estate, and
mm,
then learn and build network resources, all kinds of thing around real estate. So that's
mm,
how we got connected with physicians. Was they were our private lenders. They were the nitrous oxide in our racing engine. We got to a
mm.
point where we were doing 6 flips at a time, and we could not have done it without relationships that we had built with
Oh, wow.
physicians.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. am aware of similar types of organizations and structures, even here in Atlanta, where there are real estate investment groups
Mhm.
that are tailored to inviting doctors to come and participate and buy in and invest. And it's good that we have those options that are specifically tailored to our financial goals and needs. So
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
and
awesome.
that's the crazy thing is now working specifically with physicians. Actually, I have a company called Physician Wealth Systems where we're keyed in on providing that value for clients and building those real estate investment businesses for clients. But the
Mhm.
crazy thing, Earl, is that you could pick this up and this could be golfer wealth systems or plumber wealth systems, because the fundamentals, I didn't make this stuff up. The
Mhm.
fundamentals are there. They apply for everybody.
Mhm.
Specifically with physicians, you focused your specialties, your knowledge, your wisdom, all of this on a specific task that pretty much requires all your time and attention. So what
Mhm.
works well is that then we could exchange that. We could exchange our time and our value and bring that to the physicians in that regard. So
Mhm.
it's fun, but the idea is it all starts with a thought,
Mhm.
removing those limitations from your head and learning what are the best questions to ask and take action. I think that's like a sum of it all.
Mhm. It's awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
Hey, I've got one more question for you, Earl.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love I love your questions, and even
Mhm.
after this, stay connected with me
I
and
will.
whatever questions you have, whatever experience that I can share. That's the best part of my career is like now I get to help people. I can tell you I don't know everything. I'm a constant and never ending student of life. I will never share with you something that I haven't done myself, right? And
Mhm.
I haven't
That's that
experienced it.
humility factor that you
Yeah,
get. Yeah.
I may not. This may not be the best way to do it, but this is what way that we've done it. This is what way you shouldn't do it. I'll tell you that
Mhm.
right out of the gate too. But I'll
Mhm.
share as much as that information with you as I can.
Yes, sir.
The last question that I have for you is if you could go back 10 years and you were set beside someone just like Earl, was
Mhm.
headed in the same direction, maybe the same background, and really focusing in on that path, honing your skills, focus maybe getting towards a certain career, and you look back 10 years, what would you tell that person if you knew now? If you knew then what you know now?
Be a sponge. Um, Soak up knowledge and be intentional about it. From really many different sectors of the financial world. Don't be siloed to just learning, one thing at one time. Make sure that you learn early that you need to let your money work for you, that you need to be intentional about building generational wealth, that you need to know that debt is slavery. There's good debt, there's bad debt. I don't like any debt.
Hmm.
I'm of the tradition of, if you can pay for something outright, pay for it outright. Just because, your return margins will be excellent. But I can tell you, that's some of the greatest advice that, I would have liked to have received that I didn't, and that I would like to give to someone who is, you know, in the past getting started, maybe to my former self, or maybe to someone who, is a protege or someone who looks up to me. I would love to do that. And the other thing I would say in a more philosophical way, but also inspirational way, is that you belong in this space. Um, you and your mindset in this space is good enough. You can do this just because of who you are. And a lot of times we have to consciously suppress the imposter syndrome about being the only one in the room, about being the only person in the room, about, never having done this before, or feeling like we're not good enough, even though we have the skills and resources and the mental wherewithal to get started. Some of what you talk about, don't put up roadblocks for yourself. I always say, don't don't do the world's job. You know, the many different aspects of just living and negotiating life. You're going to deal with stress and you're going to deal with hindrances. Don't put up hindrances, um, you know, for yourself. Um, Boundaries are good. And what I mean by that is having, clear delineation between, protecting your personal time, but also protecting your professional time. And really in most situations, it might be odd hearing a physician say this, but nowadays we're understanding that, never the twain shall meet, let home be home, let work be work. A lot of older doctors will probably tell us that, they weren't good at that, and then they suffer significant detriment in their relationships and their marriages, and, even sometimes even in their finances and their personal health.
Mhm.
But be a sponge, learn as much as you can along the way, enjoy the journey, but you are enough for the journey. You can do this. And that helps with, significant trepidation. Some of it's good, but you don't want it to get to the point where it stifles you from achieving your goals. And that's something I personally had to learn that I wish someone would have told me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, those are big words. Just understanding that you are enough, and we fight this battle in our heads. Everybody does it. You can
Yeah,
be the smartest person in the world, but we're all a little crazy, Earl, and that
that's
craziness is
right.
that voice in our head. And it doesn't have to be telling you to do bad things or anything like that. We all have this voice in our head, and it
Yeah.
just through years of conditioning, and there's so much that goes on that affects that, but it drives who we are and what we do. So
Mhm.
be a sponge and make sure that you're sucking up the goodness and
Yep.
not sucking up the badness. That's for sure.
That's so true.
Hey Earl, man, I appreciate your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And yeah, if you've got any questions for us, I look forward to continuing our conversation. And
Yeah.
if anybody wants to connect with Earl, I think the Twitter is the spot, right? What's the at the Twitter, Earl?
Yeah, at Earl Stewart Jr. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'd be happy to connect with your listeners by way of either mechanism.
Nice, nice. So everybody can give him a shout, learn a little bit more about his journey. And for us, if you have any questions for us, please send us an email, info@physicianwellsystems.com. I'm sorry, info@physicianwellsystems.com. That's the email address. The resources can be found at physicianwellsystems.com. We talked a little bit about the real estate stuff. We've got a program that's called Real Estate Residency that is getting fired up too. It's just basic ins and outs of the rental world, and that's the
Mm.
little lane that I'm in. So, and speaking of lanes, thank you for being our lane today. Thank you for your time, and most of all, thank you for your attention. Be a sponge and don't let those self-limiting beliefs stop you from taking action today. And this till the next time. This is the Real Estate Mogul, MD.